What about absolute freedom and its implications on society? Today, we turn the pages of history and step into the intriguing world of Leviticus, chapter 25. This chapter from the third book of the Hebrew Bible and the Old Testament offers a fascinating perspective on freedom, one that is deeply rooted in the societal and historical context of the time. Leviticus chapter 25 introduces us to the concepts of Jubilee and Sabbath years, concepts that sought to restore balance and equality within society. It presents a vision of a society where every 50 years, slaves would be freed, debts would be forgiven, and the land would be given a year of rest. It's an exploration into an ancient societal structure that, despite its age, holds relevancy and wisdom for the contemporary world. In this discussion, we delve into the depths of Leviticus chapter 25, a chapter that introduces the concepts of Jubilee and Sabbath years. The chapter begins with a proclamation of a rather unique concept, the Sabbath year. This concept, found in verses 1 through 7, is a fascinating cornerstone of ancient Jewish law. The Sabbath year, also known as the year of rest, occurred every seventh year. During this time, the Israelites were forbidden from sowing their fields, pruning their vineyards, or harvesting any unattended growth. In essence, the land was given a year to rejuvenate, to rest, mirroring the weekly Sabbath day of rest. This might appear, at first glance, to be a precarious practice. One might wonder, wouldn't this lead to food shortages? But the divine instruction came with a promise. The sixth year would bring forth bounty enough to feed the people through the seventh year and even into the eighth until new crops could be harvested. Now let's ponder the societal implications of such a practice. The Sabbath year was a great equalizer. The rich and the poor, the landowners and the laborers, all had to adhere to the same rules, share the same risks, and trust in the same promise. It fostered a sense of community, a shared faith in divine providence. But what about today? In our modern world, where agriculture is more science than divine art, and where economies span beyond single communities, can such a concept have any relevance? Well, perhaps it does. The Sabbath year might be considered an ancient form of sustainable farming, allowing the land to recover and regain its nutrients. It also speaks to the idea of faith, of trust in a power greater than ourselves, and the importance of community concepts that are timeless. In summary, the Sabbath year was a testament to the wisdom of ancient laws, a blend of practicality and spirituality. It underlines the importance of rest, not just for us, but for the land that sustains us. So the Sabbath year was not just about rest, but also about faith, trust, and community. Now we move on to an even more fascinating concept, the year of Jubilee. Delineated in Leviticus, chapter 25, verses 8 to 22, the year of Jubilee is a concept that intrigues and inspires. It's a ritualized reset button, a societal and economic recalibration that took place every 50th year. Intriguing, isn't it? So what exactly is the year of Jubilee? In essence, it's a year of emancipation. Every 50th year, the Israelites were commanded to sound a ram's horn on the Day of Atonement. This marked the beginning of the year of Jubilee. During this year, all property that had been sold reverted back to its original owners, and those who had sold themselves into servitude were set free. This year-long observance served several purposes. Firstly, it was a reminder of God's sovereignty. The land, after all, belonged to Him, and the Israelites were merely stewards. Secondly, it was a means of economic equalization. Wealth accumulation and disparity were checked, as the rich could not amass land indefinitely, and the poor had the opportunity to start afresh. The societal implications of the Jubilee year were profound. It was a time of restoration and freedom. Those who had fallen into poverty and sold themselves into servitude were given a new lease on life. Families that had lost their ancestral lands could reclaim them, preserving their heritage and restoring their social standing. The economic implications were equally significant. The Jubilee year essentially functioned as a form of wealth redistribution, ensuring that no one could amass property indefinitely at the expense of others. It was a time of economic reset, a periodic leveling of the playing field that prevented the emergence of a permanent underclass and the concentration of wealth in the hands of a few. The year of Jubilee then was a time of restoration, freedom, and economic reset. It was a testament to the Israelites' belief in the inherent dignity of every individual, the importance of economic justice, and the ultimate sovereignty of their God over the land and its people. The chapter then proceeds to lay out laws concerning property and servitude. We delve into verses 23 to 55, which deal with property rights and the redemption of property, alongside the rules concerning servitude. Fundamentally, the land belongs to God and the Israelites are merely sojourners and tenants. This principle underpins the laws related to property. When someone sells their land, they are not really selling it outright, but rather leasing it until the next year of Jubilee. During this Jubilee, the land must return to its original owner or their family. This speaks to a divine design that sought to prevent the permanent loss of ancestral property and the emergence of a landless class. It was a remarkable concept for its time, and it's not difficult to see its echoes in our modern conversations about land ownership and wealth distribution. The laws on servitude are equally profound. If an Israelite becomes so impoverished that they sell themselves as a servant, they are not to be treated as a slave but as a hired worker. Their term of service is to last only until the year of Jubilee, or at most for 6 years. These laws underscore the fact that all Israelites are God's servants, and none should be in perpetual servitude to another. The notion of human dignity and economic justice is woven into these laws. They remind us that every person has an inherent worth that must not be violated, regardless of their economic circumstance. In the context of today's world, these ancient laws may seem far removed, yet they still hold relevance. They prompt us to reflect on our attitudes towards economic disparity, the distribution of resources, and the dignity of individuals in less fortunate circumstances. So, as we explore the intricacies of Leviticus chapter 25, we are reminded that these aren't just archaic rules inscribed on ancient scrolls. They're timeless principles about justice, fairness, and respect for human dignity. These laws remind us of the importance of economic justice and human dignity. Let's take a step back and look at the whole picture that Leviticus chapter 25 paints. This chapter presents a set of divine laws serving as reminders of balance, respect, and stewardship. The Sabbath year, occurring every 7th year, promoted rest for the land and its people, emphasizing the need for physical and spiritual rejuvenation. The year of Jubilee, a time for liberation and restoration every 50th year, reminded us of the impermanence of things and the pursuit of fairness. This chapter also highlighted the humane treatment of servants and the respect for property rights, reinforcing the inherent dignity of every individual and the concept of stewardship. These teachings urge us to consider the impact of our actions on our environment and each other, underscoring the need for balance between work and rest, ownership and stewardship. Leviticus chapter 25, then, is not just a historical text, but a timeless reminder of the values of rest, freedom, economic justice, and human dignity. So, what can we, living in the 21st century, learn from Leviticus chapter 25? You may ask. At first glance, the ancient texts may seem far removed from our modern lives. However, the principles introduced in this chapter hold practical applications even in today's world. Consider the concept of the Sabbath year, a year of rest and balance. This principle can be applied to our hectic lives. It teaches us the importance of taking a break, of allowing ourselves and our world to rejuvenate. Similarly, the year of Jubilee talks about freedom and redemption, principles that are still crucial in our societies today. It reminds us of the importance of justice and equality, of giving everyone a fair chance at life. The laws regarding property and servitude, while ancient, teach us about the ethics of ownership and our responsibilities towards others. As we conclude, remember, ancient texts like Leviticus often carry timeless wisdom that can still guide us today. Are you ready for the next chapter? Just click here to go straight to it.